Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted to welcome a well known digital marketing expert from Kansas City, Missouri, USA, Mr. Corey Morris. Corey, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you. Corey is the owner and president and CEO of Voltage. He's a speaker and an author. He's also an author and founder of the Digital Marketing Success Plan. So, Corey, my first question to you: what inspired you to start your journey in digital marketing 2 decades ago?
Yeah, it was accidental. And I'm glad I kind of just fell into it. Going through college, I got a business administration degree,
Mhm.
had a marketing focus or marketing emphasis, uh, to work in an ad agency. And so I networked my way into a job in one, and it was in the online. It was back
Mm.
when we called everything internet marketing or online
Yeah,
marketing. It was
yeah.
before we used the word digital,
Mhm.
but it was an opportunity to be one of the first employees on that side of a traditional agency. I knew nothing about HTML, knew nothing about search engines or
Yeah.
how websites were built or anything else
Mm.
back then. And everything was closed source and hard coded back then,
Yeah.
too. And those were all good things for me as I got my feet wet and learned how to do some basic HTML, learned
Mm.
how all the things came together and how it worked
Mm.
before long before AI and before, even open source and content management systems and WordPress and everything else made it
Mm.
easy to go in without knowing code, to
Absolutely.
edit things. So getting some of the technical background was good for me. And it was not the path that I had planned out. It's not what I thought about when I was a kid.
Mhm.
But it's where I landed, and looking back as I'm on the 20th year of my career, I'm happy that at that time and where things were technology wise is where I started.
Amazing, amazing. And can you share the story behind the founding of Voltage? And what was
Yeah,
the
so
biggest
voltage.
lesson you learned?
Yeah, so Voltage is in its 20th year as well, but I actually am not one of the original founders of it. So I had a little bit different entrepreneurial journey where I went from employee to owner
Mhm.
several years ago. I joined Voltage in 2013 to start another division, to start their division, digital marketing division, as they had been a creative agency, and we're doing a ton of websites. And the next question clients were asking is, well, can you help us drive leads or traffic or sales,
Mhm.
and engagement to our brand? And so I was brought in to do that and had the opportunity to grow that team and then eventually work up to leading the day to day in the agency as the president. And then
Mhm.
took one final step, a big step of acquiring the assets of the agency from one of the original
Mhm.
co-founders. So I found my
Mhm.
way in, and now have multiple businesses, but found my entrepreneurial journey kind of coming around from the side instead of starting it right out of school.
Wow, wow. And what a journey. And what motivated you to create the digital marketing success plan? And how has it
Yeah,
evolved?
I started thinking about the five or six common questions that I would get from prospects or the journeys that clients had gone through
Mm.
before they came to us. I'm not saying that we're perfect by any stretch. We're not. But I took a lot of the lessons I learned the hard way and that my agency learned the hard way
Mm.
and some of the failures and wanted to put them out front and try to solve for those. So we came up with a 5 step process and a framework called START.
Mm.
And I wanted to figure out how to get it out into the world and share it. I had some friends who were like, why do you want to give that away and let your competitors see your process
Mm.
and
Mm.
framework? But my whole goal was to be transparent with what we know works, what we think works,
Mm.
and a process for clients to build their ideal plan on the front end of doing any marketing and not waste any money.
Mm.
Google will take your money whether it's working or not.
Mm.
Facebook and other platforms,
Mm.
agencies will get paid whether it's working or not, whether you're getting ROI or not.
Yeah.
But ultimately, that led me to putting it all in my first book. called the Digital Marketing Success Plan and unpacking that process that we
Mm.
work through with clients
Mm.
and ultimately wanting to just put it out in the world for anybody to have for
Yeah,
10 or $20 by picking up the book.
fascinating, fascinating. And I'm sure my viewers and listeners would love to get a copy of the Digital Marketing Success Plan. Corey, my next question is that, have you, as you worked with so many different clients, what are some of the foundational elements of a great digital marketing strategy that most businesses overlook?
Well, in your question, that's an excellent question because used the word strategy.
Hmm.
In many cases, I see sets of tactics or checklists or things that people do on an ongoing basis that I would say are all probably good things,
Hmm.
but in the absence of being anchored and rooted in a strong strategy where you know exactly who you serve, who your target audience is, the segments you're going after, what makes money for you,
Hmm.
and whether it's leads or e-commerce sales, or if you're a nonprofit and you want more donations, whatever it is,
Hmm.
understanding exactly what that is and working backwards from the business math and not just relying on page views
Hmm. Hmm.
and visits to your site or rankings as your end goal. And so those tactics need to drive to KPIs and marketing results that have a business outcome attached to
Hmm.
them. And so that's defining your strategy and getting that deep is important because I see activities where it's like we're posting on social media 7 times a week. We write 4 blog posts and no one either been doing it for so long or you inherited it if you're a marketing manager and you came
Hmm.
in and that's what the company's been doing and you just keep it going, but without questioning why are we investing time, why are we investing dollars in creating these resources, and having conviction behind what you're doing and why
Yeah.
and how it connects to the broader business goals is number one. And so there are 5 or 6 other reasons and stories I share about that, but they all typically come back to that. And
Hmm.
that's where I can get the most agreement is on,
Hmm.
yes, if we don't understand how this moves the business forward, we should ask why we're doing it.
Absolutely. Great response. Thank you. But the other aspect, Corey, is that digital marketing is evolving continuously. How do you help clients stay current without chasing every new trend?
Yeah, there's a lot of balance. I'll start with how I approach it
Yeah.
personally.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of balance there. I spend a lot of time in AI and I have to understand where it's going, but I
Hmm.
also can't forget about what works today.
Hmm.
And so I think we're all wired in a couple of different ways. We either are the tech nerd and want the latest phone, the latest gadget, the latest thing, and we chase after that and we spend time researching it, testing it, playing with things like that,
Hmm.
or we're too busy in today and we need to, we're going to test that tomorrow or let somebody else test it first and we'll get to it at the end of the week.
Hmm.
So what happens is either I can chase and spend my time chasing that shiny object, be testing and forgetting about what I need to do today to make, hit the goals for my clients or for
Yeah.
my business,
Hmm.
or I never get to it if I'm on the other side of it.
Hmm.
I always run out of time. So I think there's always the need for structure around either to put yourself in a box and have dedicated time or bring yourself forward and have scheduled time to test and understand where everything is going in our spaces. But where it is in terms of digital marketing, there are ways we got a lead last week from someone who found us through Chat GPT.
Hmm.
And the basic premise for me is we need to be found where our prospects and opportunities are. And so, as Google is sending less clicks through, but other sources are emerging, that's a huge opportunity to be where we need to be
Hmm.
and focusing finally for a lot of companies who are thinking about just traffic and those vanity metrics and
Yeah.
not the business outcomes I talked about a moment ago,
Hmm.
focusing on quality and not quantity,
Hmm.
talking specifically to the right target audience instead of just throwing a ton of content out there and hoping you attract the right people.
Very well said. Thank you. You also mentioned AI and ChatGPT. And, my next question is, what is your view on AI and automation in marketing? And how do you recommend using it without losing the human touch which is so important in marketing.
It's absolutely critical. And I feel like I've just had some personal breakthroughs after using it for, since it's emerged,
Mm,
some breakthroughs in the past 3 or 4 months with my own use because I've spent enough hours, probably 100 hours at this point, training it. And so now I can get a lot more out of it. But I've invested so much in terms of my own content. It's got all 24,000 words of the digital
wow.
marketing success plan. It's been trained on enough things where it's getting close to creating at scale what I need it to. But at the same time, I've adapted my human processes to
Mm,
make sure that I'm still giving it oversight, and that it's not hallucinating and forgetting or getting details wrong, which it still did last week
mm,
on a couple of things. And so finding the balance, the ways I use it personally are if it's something I don't want to do, don't have time to do, or haven't done before, that I will take that task there to test it and see what it can do and how it can help me scale personally.
mm,
In some cases, it's helped me reduce the need for what I was looking for, a virtual assistant to do
yeah.
just a few years ago.
Mm,
In terms of business, it again is one of those things that you can't put on autopilot. You
yeah.
can't just turn over necessarily the human elements to because you'll lose your brand voice, that personal touch. And we're getting, we see enough just spam and stuff coming at us that we can see it and a lot of us can recognize AI generated content right off the bat. I've got 3 emails at the top of my inbox right now, and I can tell
Mm,
they were written by AI. So
mm,
it's important to make sure that as traffic sources go from a quantity to quality aspect and focus for us, that we're looking at what AI is producing, and we're not just putting it in there blindly and then throwing it into an email or throwing it onto our blog, and that we're not losing our brand voice.
mm,
Brand is super important because that's going to be that touch point, the difference between you and everyone else who may have AI content or commoditized content. That hasn't changed.
mm,
That's been a long-standing thing. But brand and PR and messaging and how you tell your story is
mm.
going to be more critical than ever in the combination of all the AI generated content alongside the lack of clicks that are coming.
Yeah, very well said. You also talk about helping, not selling. How do you build a culture around that inside a marketing agency?
Yeah, I learned many years ago now how to sell myself out of a deal, and
Mm,
that was one of the hardest things. If a business comes in and says, "Here's a bag of money putting on the table, and
mm,
I want that thing that you do,"
mm,
it's hard to resist because it's like we need, we're growing, we need that budget, we do that exact thing, we're excited, let's get started. But
mm.
not every opportunity is the right fit.
Right.
I may, and if we work together and I can't get ROI for you or results for you,
Mm.
we may work together for 6 months and part ways, and that's disruptive for you and us, and
Yep.
you're going to leave with a bad taste in your mouth. If I can find the right opportunities for my company, for me personally,
Mm.
um, great. And if it's not the right opportunity and you learn something from our conversation, and there's another partner or there's or someone who's more efficient for the stage of where your business is now
Yeah.
to invest and spend in, or different marketing channels than the ones my team specializes in, I'd rather get you plugged in the right place and not get taken advantage of by another agency if I didn't talk to you at all,
Mm.
or if again, if I didn't learn my lessons years ago and I convinced you to work with me even though we may not be right for each other.
Mm. Well
So
said.
sharing content widely,
Mm.
openly, transparently, and helping play matchmaker has been really good for me in terms of building relationships and making sure nobody gets taken advantage of.
Correct, correct. And of course the new buzzword these days is authenticity, and clearly you have a lot of that between you and your clients.
Yeah, yeah, it's important to have a really strong working relationship
Yeah.
because I can't just go into go into a silo or go away for a month and do some work behind the scenes and then
Yeah,
come back and it's work. There's a lot of partnership. There's a
absolutely.
lot of back and forth
Correct.
in terms of getting the work done, and that's a good thing. When I started my career, I could do SEO
Mm.
and make most of the decisions on my side, and the clients didn't care. I could go change keywords on their web pages. They
Mm.
didn't care.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, when Google a decade ago started focusing on context, that became a good thing. It made it be harder to do SEO because you needed more people involved, from copywriters to developers to UX and whatnot. But a good thing overall for the world.
Well said. The other challenge I have often seen a lot of agencies have with clients is that the clients are looking for a quick fix or a short-term campaign, but with a long-term brand building strategy. How do you tackle short-term objectives with long-term brand building?
Yeah, often we'll start with some type of audit or diagnostic. If we're not able to do the full plan,
Mm.
that's where we'll start with understanding where are the areas where we can get quick wins,
Mm.
and where are the areas that we need to invest with a longer term return. And so, if it's an immediate thing where they've got something broken and need help, we'll start with an audit. But in most cases, our focus is going through that 5 step start planning process, which is an acronym. And we can do that in 30 to 90 days. And
Mm.
that helps us understand exactly where to prioritize and in what channels,
Mm.
because we put it all on the board.
Mm.
Once we nail that strategy, like we talked about earlier, then we can look at all the tactics and use those business goals to understand exactly what channels and tactics and how many visitors we need to the site and where
Yeah.
we can find the right ones, mapping that back to their funnel or their customer journey. And so
Mm.
from
Mm.
there, then it flows through that process and we know exactly what the roadmap is to get
Mm.
there, with quick wins built in, and understanding the long-term investment and where they need to have patience in other channels as well, and all those things working
Mm.
together. And sometimes it surprises us on what
Mm.
channels. You may
Mm.
not think that social media is right for you and you may write it off, but when we dig into those tactics and the opportunities, we might see that, well, it's
Yeah.
depends on how you want to stack your funnel and how much top of the funnel and awareness you want to generate, and how long your sales cycle is, and
Mm.
how long it takes for them to get to the bottom. And working through that exercise as we work through the strategy and tactics is really important. And if we
Mm.
skip that work and just go start doing stuff, that's when we can have regrets later and a lot of lost spend and
Absolutely.
budget.
Absolutely. I agree completely. And what, in your view, are some of the underrated tools or channels that marketers should consider leveraging right now?
Well, there's naturally a lot of focus on where we're going with
Mm.
AI. And
Mm.
so I think there's a blend, and there's a lot of people who are shifting away from SEO because they
Mm.
think it's going to get left behind. A lot of the things, if you've been doing modern and up to date SEO, work as well for how and are some of the best practices for
Mm.
what's emerging in AI. So I'd say SEO is almost starting to get a little bit underrated because
Mhm.
people are taking their eye off of it. But I think how SEO and AI optimization interact and what you want to categorize those as is important. So not forgetting about that, because I feel like we're going to have a vacuum with some people stop pulling back on content, pulling back on optimization, and not thinking about the search engines, even though that Google's lost market share, but at least in the United States market, it still gets almost 90%
Yeah.
of the search volume, even though they're sending through less clicks. So it's funny for me to say that now because I'm going to call it underrated, even though it's still a mainstream channel. But there are aspects that are of LinkedIn, where LinkedIn is still B2B, where a lot of people are,
Mm.
and where most of the social media focus is, but there are new emerging things and nuances there. So if you've written off LinkedIn and said, well, it's just full of now spam and messages that I didn't want and connections, or that you've been working through strategies that haven't been working, I would point you back to it, because they've unlocked a couple of new things,
Mm.
like being able to boost posts on from personal brand profiles now, and being able to do some new tools on brand pages as well. So
Mm.
there's more stuff emerging there, even though it feels like maybe it got flooded for a minute and it's hard to break through. There are new tools coming there.
Very well said. The other challenge that a lot of small business owners and solopreneurs face is they don't have large budgets. How do they compete with big brands in the digital world?
Yeah, and it's hard because whether it's your budget of dollars to put out there or your time, if you're wearing
Mm.
multiple hats and running your business and
Yeah.
doing everything. And so you absolutely needed to figure out and understand a plan because it's hard to stick to it. You get busy, and it's then maybe for a month or two you don't create any content,
Mm.
or you send out that email or two and you don't get any results, and then maybe you stop doing that for a
Mm.
while, or maybe you're just creating content all day every day and you're not seeing the results for it, so you're wondering what you're sacrificing in other areas of your business.
Mm.
So no matter where you are with that, I think having a plan and going through the start planning process is a great example of what to do. But getting through that and then maybe picking one channel or two channels or the bottom of the funnel to start with,
Mm.
instead of taking it all on, and trying to spend a budget you don't have or spend time that you don't have to create the content. So starting somewhere, but you absolutely must have some type of accountability for yourself to
Mhm.
make sure that you're not going overboard or you're not taking breaks from what you need to be doing when things get busy in other areas of your
Right,
business.
right. Well said. Time for two more questions for you. My next question is for your book, the Digital Marketing Success Plan. What do you hope readers will take away from your book about digital marketing success?
Yeah, so with that framework, I hope they get through it into the other side and have their own plan. It's almost, if you remember, choose your own adventure books.
Yeah.
It's not giving you one answer, one magical shortcut to
Mm.
take,
Mm.
but everybody's plan is different. But the framework gives you an opportunity to work through it and see where you end up. Like I said, you could, if you're a solopreneur or small business, you might start narrow in one focus.
Mm.
If you're a large Fortune 500 company that we've done this with, you might end up with a multi-million dollar plan at the end
Mm.
of it. But what I want people to have is an
Mm.
actionable, accountable, documented plan to come back to. So it's not in someone's head and then
Mm.
they leave the business and then the plan walked out the door with
Mm.
them, or it's
Mm.
not personal that, hey, I'm the marketing person and I said that we need to do this, and then I get challenged by a boss
Yeah.
and it's not documented or agreed upon, and so
Mm.
now it's my plan versus the company's plan. And or like I said a moment ago, we get busy and it gets put on the shelf,
Mm.
or we get distracted or we change the plan without talking about the plan. So a
Correct.
whole number of reasons, but having a documented plan that we follow with enough agility built in so we can make adjustments as we go,
Mm.
is really where I want people to get to find their
Very,
success.
very interesting. And I hope a lot of people will go and order your book and read it. I will try and get a copy for myself as well. But my last question for you, can you share a story or an example of a campaign where a small tactical change led to a big return?
Yeah, we had a client who was really struggling. They're in global logistics, offices around the world, and was really struggling with understanding. They're creating lots of content, but understanding what their return on investment was.
Mm.
They had a large IT team and a compliance team, but nobody, and a sales team, but nobody really owned their CRM. And everybody's working in silos and nobody really followed the same blueprint.
Mm.
Working with them, we were able to align their content and work into different channels. We found out through some surveying and through
Mm.
looking at their data and getting all their data cleaned up and aggregated in Microsoft Dynamics,
Mm.
which they weren't using properly. It allowed us to understand that we could cut down our content in half, stop producing half or produce half as many emails, half as many blog posts, and start producing some, monthly video content with a couple of their thought leaders that people wanted to hear from. And that translated well around the world for them, as it allowed them to bring in people from different offices and different regions and languages to be able to speak to the different issues that their clients were facing in global trade. And so again, it was a lot easier to just shoot some videos than it was to go produce content that had to go through so many channels to just go live that not that many people were reading. But the data led us there when we finally worked together to clean it up and understand what it was telling us.
Wow, what an amazing story. But on that note, Corey, I just want to say this has been such a fascinating conversation. It's almost an amazingly detailed 101 of digital marketing. For a lot of my viewers and listeners, I think I learned some very interesting pointers from you on digital marketing as well today. Thank you also for speaking to me about both Voltage and your book, The Digital Marketing Success Plan. Thank you again and good luck.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.